Our chart looks pretty good, but we could definitely use a little bit of CSS to clean it up. In particular, it looks like each individual chart is not quite centered, and in addition, they all appear to be slightly different sizes. So I think that we should go and add a little bit of CSS to the project and get these charts to look just a little bit more uniform. Inside of my code editor, I'm going to find the style directory and open up the style.css file. This file is already wired up to our index.html document, so we can add in any CSS here that we would like, and it will automatically be applied to our document. So let's add a little bit of CSS to clean up all the charts that we have. We'll first start off by adding a selector for the TD and TH elements. And we're going to do this to make sure that we can center all the different charts on the screen, or at least in each individual cell. So we'll add in a rule for vertical align middle. I'm going to mark that as important. And then we'll also add in text align center. And we'll also mark that as important. And then two other quick rules while we are here. First, the input at the very top of the screen, it's really sandwiched up there, right? Like it's really pushing up against the address bar. I think it would look a little bit nicer if we had just a little bit of space between the address bar and the search bar. So to accomplish that, we'll add in an input group with a margin of 20 pixels on top and bottom and 0 pixels on the left and right hand sides. Finally, to address the fact that the actual charts appear to be slightly different in size, we'll fix the size of the charts by adding in an SVG with a height of 150 pixels, like so. Okay, let's refresh our document now and see how we're doing. Okay, the search bar definitely looks much more reasonable. And if we add a city, fantastic. So all the text in here is nicely centered and each chart appears to be identically sized. So this is looking pretty good. Now I definitely like how the app is turning out overall. And we can add in multiple cities. So how about Sacramento and how about Tampa, New York? Cool, looks good. But I kind of feel like maybe we could amp this up just a little bit more. Maybe we can do just a little bit more than what we have right now. So here's what I propose. How about instead of showing the name of the city on each row, on the very left-hand side, let's instead show a tiny Google Maps window so the user can get a little bit more interactive feel to it. So we'll put a very real Google Maps embedded map right here on the first column of every single row so that the user will see, hey, okay, I recognize like this is the correct New York City that I expected to be searched for, or Tampa or Sacramento. Definitely relevant once we start searching for, London, which as we saw is not quite based out of London overseas that you might expect. Okay, so let's get started by using Google Maps to amp up our chart just a little bit here. Now we're going to make a separate component to house the actual map that we'll be showing here. So we're going to take a lesson that we've learned right off the bat and make a separate reusable component. With this map, we probably don't need to be touching Redux at all, so we're going to make it as a component, not a container. So it will not expect to have any concept of state, or at least application state. We're just going to pass in some props from the parent component and have the component decide how to make a map appear on the screen. So inside of my components directory, I'm going to make a new file called googlemap.js. And inside of here, we'll make our component that will show a map on the screen in some fashion. We'll start off by importing React and component from React at the top. And then we'll create a Google Map component. And then export it at the bottom. Okay, looks good. Now I want to tell you a little bit about Google Maps. The starter project that we've are working with here, if you open up the index.html file, you'll notice that there's a script tag in here that is importing the Google Maps API JavaScript file. So this project we're working with is already wired up for making use of Google Maps. We don't have to do any additional installing of modules or anything like that to make use of Google Maps. So at any point in time, we can just start referring to google.maps. That's kind of like the namespace of Google Maps using the JavaScript API. So if I go back over to my terminal, I can say google.maps, and ta-da, here's this fancy object that allows us to create a new Google map. Now this is something that's both nice and not quite so nice. Let me tell you why it's not quite so nice. So far in this course, we've gotten used to making separate React components for everything we did, right? We've made like tables and charts and images, all these different kinds of elements by making individual components and then rendering those components on the screen by using a render method inside of a component. This time around, however, we're using a third-party library that has the idea already of how to render a map onto the screen. So in other words, we're about to make use of this library that has absolutely no idea how to integrate into a map, or excuse me, integrate into a React type application. So as we go through this implementation here, we're going to be putting a little bit of code on the screen that's going to look a little bit crazy, but immediately after we throw it all up, we'll talk about exactly what's going on with it. Okay, so there's only about 6 or 7 lines here that we're going to enter in. They're going to look a little bit weird, but we're going to put them down and then come back and immediately discuss what's going on. First, I'm going to create my render method. And inside of here, I'm going to return a single element, and I'm going to give it a prop. I'm going to call ref, and I'm going to assign it the string of map. This makes use of the ref system in React. The ref system allows us to get a reference, so that's what ref here is for, it's short for reference, a direct reference to an HTML element that has been rendered to the page. So after this component has been rendered to the screen, I can get a direct reference to the div that was created right here by referring to this.refs.map. So anywhere else in this component, I can say this.refs.map, and it would give me a direct reference to this actual HTML element. And you'll see why that's important in just a second. So here's the other chunk of code that I said was going to be a little bit weird. We're going to say component did mount, and then inside of here, we'll say new google.maps.map. The first element, or excuse me, the first argument we're going to pass in will be this.refs.map. And then the second argument is going to be an object. We're going to pass in 2 properties here. The first is zoom of 12, and then a center, which is going to have a lat of this.props.lat and a long, excuse me, lng of this.props.long, like so. Okay, so a little bit of weird code here. Let's take a quick break and then come back and talk exactly about what is going on with this statement right here.